Hey, welcome to Vortex Garage, and we're working on our 1983 Jaguar XJ6. Specifically, we're just doing some stuff off camera today, replacing a lot of rubber hoses and boring things like that. Well, I kind of got deep into it in the back of the engine and found I was in the prime spot to replace the expansion valve. Now, as I started doing that, I figured I better grab the camera and show you a few tips and tricks on how to remove it. Now, before we show the expansion valve, it's important to note that we're working on a fully empty and recovered AC system. You should only work on AC systems if you have the right knowledge and qualifications, and opening a system that's under pressure is extremely dangerous. Additionally, venting any gas to atmosphere is also a big no-no, with laws around it depending on where you are. Our system did have pressure, and it was properly recovered prior using a recovery system and tank with nothing vented. Now, once it's empty, we could safely work on our AC components. Now, this was done when we had to replace the compressor, so our system was already emptied when we started today. So here is our replacement evaporator valve. As you can see here, this is quite an interesting piece of kit. So let's set this aside. We'll go look in the car, and you can see a little sneak preview of some of the stuff we're going to have in video soon. We've got quite a bit of work done to the engine here. And like I said, we're going through and replacing pretty much every rubber component that we can find that is accessible. We've got a lot of new rubber hoses, and we were actually working on some of the heater hoses in the back. And I've also replaced the AC compressor. So we've got everything open in the AC. We're going to re-O-ring it, and I wanted to put a new expansion valve on. Well, since I was working back here, everything became very accessible. But let's take a look at this, because this is a somewhat complicated piece of equipment, actually. So I've pulled off the hose here. This is the low pressure hose, and then there's a high pressure hose that goes into here. And let me zoom out. I'm just doing this on my phone to show you. Here's the high pressure line that goes over there, and then I've got the low pressure one out of the way. I used a 1 1/16 wrench on that, and I used a 3/4 inch crow's foot on this right here. Let me zoom back in. All right, so did the 3/4 inch crow's foot on here while I took this one off. It was pretty tight. The big thing is these go into the evaporator. I'm really trying to be careful to not break these, because then I'd have to pull the whole dash apart and replace the evaporator. I don't want to do that. I'm assuming it's a dash out job, and I don't really want to find out. So, all right, but here's the rest of the expansion valve. This is where the high side one went, and this is the low side that goes in. So the larger tube and the smaller tube. When I took this one off, it actually came off pretty easily. And but I knew there's these two capillary tubes, and I was trying to figure out where the capillary tubes go to, because all I saw was this mess of stuff. And what it turns out to be, let's show you the new one. So here's the new one. You can see there's almost like what looks like a temperature probe kind of thing, and with a capillary tube that goes in the front. And then there's a second capillary tube with a flare nut, and we're going to show you exactly where those go on the car. Once we took all these hoses off, we could see very easily this is some insulation material. It's really kind of crusty and grungy. So I did take some vacuum caps. I put one here and one over there, because I don't want anything to get into our lines. And otherwise, I've just been coming in here and scraping some of this away. And as you can see, as I've done that, I've uncovered our flare nut. So the flare nut capillary tube bolts into here. So I'm going to need to clean all this up, and then I can get that off. From what I understand, the other capillary tube goes into a kind of like holder piece here, and there should be some screws that I have not yet uncovered, but I'm hoping I uncover, and we'll show you when we do. And that actually goes into a clamp, and that rests against this tube. And basically what that must do is regulate, there's probably almost like a heat pipe kind of deal. As this rests against here, as the temperature of this line changes, it'll either boil or change fluid in that heat pipe, and it'll cause your expansion valve to open or close. And then you've also got the bleed off, it looks like, that goes into this capillary tube. I'm not an expert exactly on how these work, but I just know that I want to replace it, and I need to find all of the connectors for it. So I'm going to get all this goo out of the way, and then we're going to see if we can figure out exactly where it is. But that's a good view I wanted to get, because honestly, once that's done and I put all the hoses back in, I'm not going to have that good of a view of it. So that's why we're doing it now. All right, let's show you a little bit of progress here. So as you can see, we did uncover the screws. Those are Phillips head self-tapping screws. And this thing's basically a clamp. So I was able to get a screwdriver in there, get these loose. They weren't that tight, which was nice. And then I was able to kind of pry up a little bit, and now we can pull out the old capillary tube, which used a coiled piece of wire instead of the new one that uses a slightly different design. But we can go ahead and pull that out. And then this was a 9/16 flare nut. I've gone ahead and loosened it. Now that I can get it turned around, I can clean a little more of this gunk off. I did run a wire brush through here to try to clean up because I don't want any to get in there when I pull this off. Then we're going to have to work on the firewall side, and that is the one I am most nervous about. I think what we're going to have to do here is we have to hold our piece here with a wrench, and then we have to take off the wrench here. This union here should stay with the evaporator, and it should turn free. So I have soaked it with some penetrating oil. Unfortunately, our car doesn't have a ton of mileage, and it doesn't look too bad back there. So I'm hopeful that we won't break the evaporator. We'll let you know. I feel super lucky. I was able to get this off, no problem. I sprayed a little brake cleaner. Actually, the end of it, as you can see, looks nice and clean. Put a vacuum cap over it so we don't get any dirt in. And then when I went to put some wrenches on this, I was getting a 3/4, and well, the 3/4 is going to hit everything up here. And ideally, and actually what the service manual recommends is removing the water valve. But what I found was a stubby 3/4 that I had. I was able to get that on there and hold our valve. I believe the other one is a 7/8, so I was then able to get a 7/8 onto our one back there, hold the valve very tight, and then loosen it. But what kind of struck me as odd, and I don't know if I'm just super lucky or if this was loose and maybe had been replaced in the past, but you can tell it's already loose. I barely had to pull on it at all. So hopefully that means we're in good shape. We didn't break anything, and we didn't break our evaporator. So I'm going to use both my hands. I'm going to get this pulled out, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's out. All right, here it is out of the vehicle. This is how it would mount. There's the capillary tube that goes in the clamp against the low side pipe. Here's the flare fitting that goes into that pipe as well. We'll go show you on the car. All right, there we are in the car. You can see the pipe here, and this flare fitting stays with the evaporator. I've put a vacuum cap in here. That's our low side pipe, or our larger pipe. It should be the low side. You can better see, let me get my phone to focus a little bit better. There we go. You can better see the screws on that clamp. This is where that tube will slide in. And then I've capped off where that goes as well. And this is that insulation. I don't know what you can replace that insulation with or how important it is to do that. What we're going to do for now is go ahead and put our new evaporator valve in and get it tightened up. And then we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so we're ready to put this on, and I realized that there were no O-rings in the new one, which was really aggravating. As you can see, there's an O-ring on this piece right here, and the O-rings actually fit inside the connectors on the expansion valve, so I'm really surprised that the new one didn't have fresh O-rings. So what I did is I pulled out the old ones, and I know you're looking like, hey, that had O-rings in it. Well, I pulled out the old ones, and then I've got a bag of random AC O-rings from when I've done small repairs over the years, and I was able to match up 2 O-rings that fit, and I was going to go ahead and get those in. Now, I'm actually going to order a full O-ring kit for the car and re-O-ring everything, but it looks like, fortunately, my little bag of tricks over there, I had the right O-rings for this, so we can go ahead and install this and be good to go. All right, and we are done. We've got it back in. It's a little harder to see everything now, but there it is. Actually, that's not too hard to see at all. So we have tightened down all our connections on our expansion valve because they have new O-rings. That would be the small capillary tube, the top high side, the thinner pipe, and then the connection into the evaporator. On our larger one, which I'm pretty sure, again, is our low side, I've left this loose, but I've just sort of put it on so we don't get dirt in it because, like I said, I've got to get an O-ring kit, and we're going to go ahead and put new O-rings on everything, and we'll go from there. But like I said, since I was just doing rubber hoses today and started working on that and realized, you know what, this might be some good information to share. So hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it valuable. And if you're wanting to see more on our Jag, just hang tight because we're wrapping up our job here, and we've got tons of video that we'll be able to post up on YouTube of a major service on this vehicle. All right, otherwise, drop us a like and a subscribe, and we'll certainly have more for you here on Vortex Garage. Oh, that's not a scratch. That's just dirt.